question is, why make these announcements today ahead of the State of the Union? No better person to answer that question than John Moody, former executive vice president at Fox News, former Rome Time bureau chief, joining us now. You never trained me when we worked together to believe in coincidences. I can't imagine that this is one today.
I told you don't ever be fooled by a coincidence, Leland, and it's proving itself right today. Joe Biden has a lot of problems and not a whole lot to brag about, and he wants to put a few wins, a few potential wins in the column before he goes off to Delaware to get some sun.
Does this change the conversation? You think about the cable news screen right now. You've got Kyiv and the battle for Kyiv and whether or not the Russians are able to take over, competing against the first African-American female Supreme Court nominee. Who wins the Sunday show battle?
Well, I think it depends on which Sunday show you're looking at. There are going to be Biden loyalists, those who favor the president and his policies, that are going to concentrate on the Supreme Court nomination because it's happy news. There are going to be others who say, you know, he screwed up Afghanistan and now he's going to let the same thing happen to Ukraine. But I think that overall, it's going to be a split screen that you see on Sunday, because it's just what's going on in Eastern Europe right now is too important, it's too historic, and to ignore it or to downplay it is really an abdication of journalistic responsibility.
Yeah, NBC Nightly News was playing back-to-back sound bites of the president saying one thing and his vice president saying the other. The one issue always overriding State of the Union, the State of the Union, is the economy, stupid. If the economy isn't working for you as president, really almost nothing else can save you. Inflation at a 40-year high. The other issue is gas prices. Today, $3.57 in average. Yesterday, $3.54, up 3 cents, but up almost well over $1 since the president took office. He says he's going to do everything possible to lower prices and to reduce pain at the pump. We can argue either way whether he's going to do that or not. What number is the trigger for the administration to truly say that is a crisis for us? We actually will do anything we have to do.
It's a great question, Leland, one that I can't answer, but I would say that it's probably not going to be the price of a gallon of gas that is the trigger. It's going to be his approval ratings. And once it starts to go even lower than it is right now, his advisors are going to get around him and say, Mr. President, you know, things are not going to get better if you don't stomp and kick and do something really important and try to get people to forget about what's going on in Ukraine. I'm sort of reminded of the circus magician show, you know, where he says, don't look right in front of you. Don't look right at me. Look over here. There's something very important going on over here. And while you're doing that, then, of course, he pulls the rabbit out of the hat.
The ringmaster, to continue your analogy, would be Ron Klain, the president's chief of staff, who's going to be looking for wins to put on the board ahead of the midterms. Is a female Supreme Court justice going to historically, putting the first female black Supreme Court justice, is that enough of a win for the base to be pacified, to allow the president to tack to the center and try to regain some of these approval numbers, even if it's policies that aren't necessarily popular with the base?
Well, I think the best thing that can be said about today's nomination is that the president did what he said he was going to do. He already took all the air out of the balloon. He said he was going to nominate an African-American woman. He did. So at least he kept his promise on that. But I'll tell you, Ron Klain is looking for a win. But if he doesn't do something pretty soon, he's going to be looking for a job.
You think it's that bad?
I think it's very close to being that bad. Of course, I'm not within the administration. I can't talk to those people. But at the same time, I think Ron Klain has really left his boss out on a limb. And, you know, usually presidents don't like to pay the price themselves. They get rid of their chief of staff.
Yeah, or bring in somebody to really shake up the staff. This is the president today with the announcement before he headed out. Take a listen.
A proven consensus builder, an accomplished lawyer, a distinguished jurist, one of the nation's most prestigious courts. My nominee for the United States Supreme Court is Judge Ketanji Jackson.
All right. It's a 50-50 Senate. You've got Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and then also Lindsey Graham, who voted for her for the appellate seat. So it's, you know, you've got 53 right now. If this fails, he failed on Build Back Better. There's some conservative Democrats like Joe Manchin who may not want to have to go answer for this vote. If this fails, give us the prediction.
If he fails to get what I think everybody can agree is at least a qualified nominee approved by the Senate, then Joe Biden has a leadership problem unlike that of any recent president. And I'm including former President Trump. I'm including former President George W. Bush. If he can't get this done.
Look, in fairness, you were there. George W. Bush nominated Harriet Miers. That went over like a lead balloon.
Right, it did. And that's why I'm saying nobody's perfect. But Joe Biden has not had a big win since he took office. And if he doesn't come up with something to wow the crowd, in other words, to get them to take their eyes off the magician in front of them and start to look at the things on the side of the stage, he's in big trouble.
Well, the magician in front of him won't be wearing a mask. The CDC today suddenly decided after all of the Democratic governors couldn't deal with it anymore, suddenly, hey, we don't need masks anymore. It is the spring of freedom, if you will. Obviously, that's going to be a big part of the State of the Union. I promised to beat the virus, and I did. How's that not a win?
It can be a win as long as the rates of infection don't go up again, and his science advisors, on whom he's put all of his faith and hope, don't start to say to him, hey, Mr. President, you have to turn it back again. We have to start wearing masks, and we have to do more things and stay indoors. I mean, that would be, I think, a fatal blow to the remainder of this administration. So he's taking a chance. He's taking a chance on masks, and he's taking a chance on public opinion, but it better work because he doesn't have anything else going for him right now.
Yeah, certainly last summer, and then when Omicron came out, the president's numbers took a big dip. John Moody, formerly of Fox News, former Rome's Time Bureau Chief, it's good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Leland.
Yeah, all the best. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.